Hello there, it's been a minute and welcome back to Hibs.pod Season 2, at least that's what we're calling it. This is still episode 4, so it's not quite accurate, but you get the gist. Today we're really pleased to be joined by Joelle Murray, one of the best known figures within the Hibernian community. Most well known for her exploits as a long-standing member of a women's team, Joelle is a Hibs captain, a coach, a Community Foundation staff member, a Hibs TV pundit, a BBC analyst, head of a Girls Academy and an all-round Hibernian legend. Speaking of Hibernian legends, I'm joined as always by Stu. How you doing, Stuart?
Yeah, not too bad. Enjoyed our summer break. I think while still at footballers were complaining they were overworked this summer, we had an extended break and took a bit of a holiday, so it's good to be back.
Yeah, I don't know what they're moaning about, to be honest. But yeah, we've had a full pre-season. Obviously, we weren't planning on taking that break. If you listened to our last episode, we did say we'll see you in June. But really, it just made sense for a lot of reasons, mainly players and staff being away. I think it's fair to give them a bit of a break, but we will be back every single month bringing you a new interview for the rest of the season.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I think we've got some pretty good guests lined up. Obviously, getting Joelle on first is a good starting point. I'm sure she's got plenty interesting to say. It's something that I'm quite passionate about is the advancement of women's football. So looking forward to that chat. I think one of the things we said we'd start off with is just a little bit of housekeeping around the podcast and around Hibs.net in general. First one is obviously the shirt sponsorships, something that we've done for a long time. And this year we're continuing our sponsorship of Darren McGregor's home shirt. We're continuing our sponsorship of Josh Doig's boots, and we've now this year added Alex Gogic's away shirt as well. So it's money into the club, and it's something we enjoy doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Delighted to be able to continue to do that, and thank you to obviously everybody who uses the site. It allows us to support the club in that way. Also some updates from the forum itself. Declonius, his prediction league, which was a really popular feature last year, he's agreed to run it again, which is great. This time we decided to kind of sponsor some prizes, so the top 3 can win £50, £30 and £20 of Hibernian vouchers respectively. There's no wooden spoon, unfortunately. Last year I think I was in the top 10, I did pretty well, and currently I'm not even in the top 50, so the less we say about that the better. I don't know about you, Stuart.
Yeah, I'm not in the top 50 either, but I did miss a week to be fair, so that's my excuse. But yeah, I think maybe the plan here is if you actually want to learn anything about football, don't listen to us.
Yeah, exactly.
On the topic of conversations, I'm sure people that are regular users of the forum will know, but maybe people that only check into the podcast on Twitter, we do regular first goal scorer competitions as well. Basically, every home game or every home league game, we do a first goal scorer competition. Guess the goal scorer, guess the minute, win a £20 gift voucher. Pretty self-explanatory. So I think we're pretty good to go with the interview. I think there was just one little word of thanks you wanted to give before we go ahead with that, Gav.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously Joelle has been at the club for a long time, and up until recently the Hibs ladies and now Hibs women team weren't always accessible via online means, and I am a remote fan, so I had to do a little bit of research for this. And Jack Gillies, who's quite a well-known Hibs fan, particularly on Twitter, I think it's at Jack Gillies 6, and his YouTube channel, which is Jack Gillies 1875, where he makes kind of football video essays, are really good, really interesting. He loves his German football, loves women's football, and he gave us a lot of information, basically his own personal insight onto Joelle's kind of role within the club and her career to date. So thank you to Jack for helping us out.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo that. I didn't actually speak to Jack myself, but I follow him on Twitter, and he's an interesting guy. A lot of really interesting stuff, as Gab said, particularly around women's football and German football. So give him a follow, and thanks very much.
Great, so on that, let's introduce our 4th guest to Hibs.pod, the most decorated captain in Hibernian history, Joelle Murray. Joelle, we'd be remiss if we didn't start by talking about the 2 recent matches, just for 20 goals over the 2 games. I mean, it's not a bad start, although we were speaking last night and you were very quick to say, yeah, but I'm not happy about the 2 we conceded. Typical defender. Can you talk us through the start to the season?
Yeah, of course. The last 2 games we played Sunday, Wednesday, and of course, as you alluded to there, we managed to convert 20 of our chances over the 2, but like you said, typical defender. I was coming down the road last night from Dundee, and all I could think about was those 2 goals that we conceded, and it was both scenarios just on repeat, playing through my mind. But I think that just kind of typifies the person that I am. I could probably make nine half decent successful passes out of 10, and I'd focus on the one that was unsuccessful. So that kind of tells a story in itself. But yeah, fantastic start to the season. We've managed to kind of qualify from our League Cup group to progress to the knockout stages. So we're very, very happy with that.
We were looking at the 22 goal difference on the table, and it's something you don't see often. Great start to the season so far. Can you talk to us about kind of your evolving role? Obviously, as a player, you've kind of started mostly as a midfielder, kind of shifted back towards a sort of sweeper role, playing both defence and midfield. Sort of, what position you're mainly playing this season, what your role is?
Yeah, of course. So this season, primarily, we'll be playing centre half, and certainly hope I don't get moved out to the wings as I did when I was younger. I certainly don't have the legs or the engine to kind of go box to box, but primarily centre half this season. It's a position that I've kind of grown to love. When I was first moved into the position from central midfield, I was a bit sceptical because I always saw centre half as a bit of a negative position, a position that didn't see a lot of the ball, but the style of football that we play, I'm very much part of a lot of the attacks because we like to kind of build from the back. So yeah, it's a position that I was kind of forced into. It wasn't one of choice, but one I've grown to love and enjoy playing. Obviously,
we've got some new signings this season. I think a couple from America as well, so that's something new for them culturally. How have you found the additions to the squad, and what kind of dynamic is there in the team at the moment?
The new additions have been absolutely fantastic. We knew we needed to sign new players because we finished the season playing Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday for about 3 or 4 weeks with about 13 players. So the same starting 11. I mean, at my age, it was tough. So yeah, I was thankful for those new signings. As you mentioned there, we've got 3 Americans, Gabby, a goalkeeper, Tony and Alexa, kind of attacking-minded players. But we've also signed Michaela McAloney from Spartans, and Erin Rennie, who's a very young player, but a great prospect. So all of those players have added a great strength and depth within the squad, and certainly there's a lot more competition for places now, and you can see that in training. Players are kind of noticing the strength and depth, and the intensity and tempo in training alone is lifted greatly because of that. And that's what you want. That's what you want as a coach and a manager, and as a player you want that competitive nature, and we certainly have that in abundance now.
Joelle, so you touched on it there. Obviously last season was a little bit different, both in terms of the number of games, but just how quickly you had to complete them. Can you just quickly talk us through a little bit more what that was like?
Yeah, of course. I mean, last season was different in a number of ways. Obviously, you had COVID, which meant that the season was very much stop-start. I think in the end, we completed about 4 pre-seasons. But then when we kind of got going again, it meant that the end of the season was packed with games. We played 3 or 4 weeks, playing Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, just to complete the season on time. And it was tough going. It was really tough. Your schedule was pretty full. Because of course although we've moved to kind of a semi-professional status, a lot of the team, if not all of the team, are either working in school and further education. So it was hard, but we managed it, and I felt like we finished the season strongly.
I think Gav sort of touched on it there with regards to obviously talking about some of the transfers that came in, and I think you led us into it quite nicely yourself with regards to the semi-professional status of the players at Hibs. Obviously you were the first professional Hibernian ladies player, which is obviously a great step forward for the club. How do you see that in sort of your current role, both within the foundation and within the ladies team? How do you see that progressing? Will Hibs go to a position of sort of trying to get more players onto professional contracts? The reason I kind of ask is obviously over the last few years there's been a few notable Hibs players gone sort of down south. There was Kim Little's probably the most high profile, but there was Lizzie Arnott, Kirsty Smith, more recently Jamie Lee Napier as well. And they've obviously left without Hibs getting any sort of real sort of compensation for the work we've done in developing those players. Is it part of the strategy to try and get these players on professional contracts so we can start bringing in transfer fees?
Yeah, of course, and I think that was the main reason we knew we had to make that transition, because you spoke about the players there, and it's frightening when you think about the players that have come through the academy, transitioned to first team and left the club without any sort of development fee. Kim Little, Caroline Weir, Lucy Graham down at Everton, Abby Harrison. When you think of the players, you could probably make 2 starting 11s out of them. And I think that was the main reason we needed to go to semi-professional, because we needed to get these players on contracts to provide a bit of security for the club, because, as I said, for so long we went through a cycle of recruiting players, developing them, promoting them to first team, them being successful, but then leaving without any sort of fee. So we were always back to square one after about 2 or 3 seasons. So that's the main reason we're now on a semi-professional status, and that status allows us to implement that kind of clause in our contracts. But of course, for me, the next step would be to kind of go full-time professional and kind of integrate further into the club, because at the moment, although there is that attachment, we're not fully integrated, and we are essentially a separate entity, kind of finding our own feet and kind of building our own framework. So for me, the steps have been progressive, but can certainly, hopefully, in a few seasons to come, can kind of reach that goal of fully integration and full-time contracts for all players.
On the subject of sort of transfers again, more sort of generally this time, is obviously Pernille Harder recently broke the women's transfer record when she signed for Chelsea. I think it was £250,000. And before we actually came on, I said to Gav that I think we're sort of well within the decade where the first £1 million ladies player will be transferred. I think it's almost a certainty. Where do you sort of see sort of transfer fees going in the ladies game? Is it going to explode in the same way it did in the men's game, sort of throughout the 90s and noughties?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it won't be long before we see that type of fee for a women's player, and in my opinion, quite rightly so. However, I do think we need to be mindful of the money that's been spent. You saw it in the Spanish leagues recently with Messi having to move on because of a wage cap. And I think it's great to see that players are being kind of recognised and rewarded with great amounts of transfer fees. But I think there needs to be a balance of how far do we go and when do we cap it? Because of course your Chelseas and your Arsenals and your Man Cities and your Rangers and Celtics up here in Scotland, naturally those clubs have an abundance of financial resource, and it often becomes a case that those teams kind of run away with leagues and competitions because of that. So I think to provide a bit of fairness, there needs to be a balance of that kind of reward and recognition in terms of transfer fees and development fees, but also one eye on the bigger picture and how that kind of impacts those other clubs within the leagues.
I think that's something we're actually quite keen to talk about, and you've brought us into it quite nicely. Is obviously in the last sort of few years, Rangers and Celtic have really sort of stepped up their efforts in the women's game. And, you know, obviously for a long time, Hibs and Glasgow City were kind of the two dominant forces, and then suddenly you've got this sort of spectre coming out of the other parts of Glasgow. You know, that as someone who's obviously a passionate supporter of women's football, but also a passionate, you know, Hibs player, you know, how do you balance that between, you know, having two two big entities in Glasgow, who are trying to professionalise their ladies' teams. It's good for the development of the game. How do you balance that with the own ambitions for the game in general, for the smaller clubs, if you like, and for Hibs? How do you remain competitive with that?
Yeah, I think obviously Rangers and Celtic, as you said, they kind of resourced, especially financially resourced, a lot of kind of time and effort into their women's teams, and without kind of beating about the bush, Rangers essentially bought a new team on the back of them fully integrating into the club. And it's one of those ones, one hand you're thinking it's great because you're hoping that will give other clubs the impetus to kind of do something similar, and kind of go with that model of integration into their club in some way. However, on the other hand, you're thinking, how do we compete with that? Because it is the same in the men's game, whereby I'm pretty sure if Hibs and Rangers or Hibs and Celtic were in for a player and it came down to money, naturally the player would choose the Glasgow clubs. And it's the same with us. We were in a position whereby we had the opportunity to re-sign a couple of players who'd went elsewhere, maybe down south and abroad, and they wanted to come back to Scotland, and they actually wanted to come back to Hibs, but we couldn't compete in terms of kind of contracts and what other clubs could offer. So there's kind of I wear two hats with regards to that discussion. One, it's great because the game is progressing and hopefully they can pull other clubs forward. But on the other hand, it's one of frustration, to say the least.
I think it's been 16 years you've been at the club. Correct me if I'm wrong there. As is clear from our conversation, you've overseen a lot of change, both within the club itself and the structure of women's football in that time, but you've also done quite a lot on the pitch, which includes Champions League performances, multiple domestic trophy wins, Scotland caps. I spoke to Jack Gillies before coming on to do this because I'm a remote fan. I'm based in Norwich, so I haven't always been able to watch the women's team. And he couldn't speak highly enough of you. And I think that's where you get a true reflection of people's opinions as a fan when you just ask them candidly. Describe Joelle Murray, and he couldn't use any word but legend. You're still playing, you're still coaching, but have you had any opportunity to reflect on that status as a living Hibs legend?
Probably not, actually, and it still doesn't really sink in when people kind of refer to me in that kind of term, with that terminology. Because for me, I just see myself as a Hibs fan playing for Hibs. So when I do hear stuff like that, it makes me kind of like take a step back and maybe think about briefly what I've done, but I probably fully won't reflect on my career and what I've done at Hibs until I retire. So yeah, for me, I just want the best for the club on and off the pitch, and if I can play a part in that, then so be it. It's never about me. I always try and push a lot of things onto other players and ensure other players are kind of getting the recognition and the reward that they fully deserve. So yeah, it probably won't sink in, and I fully won't reflect on my career at Hibs until I retire. So hopefully another season or two before I can do that.
I hope it doesn't come across like we're trying to prematurely retire you here. But do you have any sort of aspirations for after your playing career's over? I mean, obviously, you're working towards a qualification in applied football management. You're obviously doing the work with the Community Foundation and overseeing the sort of ladies project, if you like. And on top of that, you've been a very popular pundit on The Match on Hibs TV as well. So what would be sort of next for Joelle Murray a few years down the line? The pundit, the manager?
There's probably not a specific pathway that I want to go down or that I've decided to go down at the moment. All of the things you spoke about they're all of the things I absolutely enjoy, and I think the one kind of common denominator is football. I absolutely love football and I love Hibs, and anything that involves those two entities. I'm wanting to know more about and wanting to learn and wanting to be part of. But I'm currently going through my A license, so I've got a keen kind of interest in coaching. However, as you said, I'm doing my applied football management course, and on that course it's fellow professionals like Johnny Hayes and Andy Considine and stuff. So learning and listening from guys like that is very, very beneficial. And yeah, the media and the broadcasting stuff. So those are the three kind of pathways that I think, one of which I will choose to go down. But over the course of the three, I'd still kind of like to do a bit of each. I don't kind of want to signpost myself into one area. And again, across both the male and the female game, I wouldn't kind of signpost myself and say definitely want to stay in the women's game, because I do have a keen aspiration to go into the men's game. And I was quite fortunate to be down at HTC for a training session with the first team. I was overseeing and observing, and just the way Jack and the coaching staff down there go about their business, it's something that I'm and would be keen to kind of get involved in both the male and the female games. So yeah, long story short, or to summarise that, I don't have a pathway that I want to go down, but at the moment I'm kind of building that toolbox and making sure that when I do retire, I'm in a position to kind of pick from that what I wish to do.
This is literally just 5 little questions. They're actually not that silly. These ones are all relatively good, but just kind of just for short, sharp stuff. So we mentioned the Hibs TV. So who was your favourite guest on Hibs TV that you were on alongside with last season?
Oh, favourite guest. I don't want to offend anyone, but probably John Hughes and or Gordon Strachan. Both were on it when need be, but very, very cheeky off the camera. So one of those two.
And if there was a sort of dream guest, any pundit, any player that you could be on sort of punditry duties with, who would you like it to be?
Dream guest. I'll keep it Hibs related. Probably Frank Sawsey.
Good choice. Best player you've ever played with?
It's a tough one. Kim Little or Caroline Weir, but I'll go with Kim. Absolutely unbelievable player.
And the best player you've played against?
Vivian Miedema, now of Arsenal, but played against her when she was playing with Bayern Munich.
And finally, your favourite player, either currently, grown up, or sort of all time?
I idolised David Beckham when I was growing up. I was a right winger, he was a right winger, and I just modelled my game on his. So yeah, David Beckham.
That's interesting, because my fiance always says that's the one man she worries I would leave her for, is David Beckham, so that's something we've got in common. Perfect, that is great. I think now there was something that we wanted to touch on, and we were kind of wary of kind of going down a sort of negative route with this, because we wanted to try and make it as positive as possible. But I think it kind of has to be said. One of the questions that was put to us was how do ladies footballers feel about maybe being under a bit less scrutiny than their male counterparts. And I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, I think probably to an extent, individual performance, that's probably correct, in the sense that at the moment on Hibs.net, you're not getting, a 10-page thread about could Joelle Murray have done better for this goal conceded, where we've seen that with someone like Matt Macy on Sunday. But I think there's a much darker element to it with regards to ladies football on social media, and it can be a bit poisonous at times, as you can see a sort of anything from a sort of casual sexism, where people think they're hilarious for saying women footballers should be doing the ironing rather than playing football, through to disparaging comments about performance and the quality of the game, through to misogyny, through to outright sort of explicit sexualization of players. As a player, as someone who coaches, how do you feel about that, and how does it impact both yourself individually and the ladies within your squad, and at younger age groups as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably sad to say it, but I, along with the other players in the squad, probably expect those types of comments. We're now in a position that we've probably been exposed to, either directly or indirectly, those types of comments. So it's unfortunate that we now expect them. And don't get me wrong, they probably don't come as much as they did a couple of years ago, because of course mindsets and perceptions are changing. And I think that's been helped by the Euros in 2017 and the World Cup in France in 2019, kind of getting more exposure, and people then appreciating the ability on the pitch, and instead of having an opinion of women's football without actually seeing it, they're now seeing it, and they're actually taking notes. So yeah, it's disappointing that you come to expect that. And those types of comments, like you said, women shouldn't play football, they should be in the kitchen. But I think it speaks more about that individual than it does us as footballers, because we, and certainly I don't see myself as a woman playing a men's game or a woman playing football. I see myself as a footballer playing football, and certainly I don't think there's any need to kind of specify either way. So yeah, disappointing. But as I say, those types of things and comments are less and less. And I think for me, although it wasn't from anything on the pitch, as I experienced that last season on the back of an appearance on the match, and social media kind of blew up on the back of it, and it is tough. And you then at that point fully appreciate kind of the higher profile players, male and female, what they go through probably on a daily basis. And that for me was one instance, and it kind of made me kind of, I got a fright. I'm not going to lie, I got a fright, and I wasn't kind of sure what to do or say on the back of it. So yeah, it's disappointing that these types of people are still thinking it's acceptable to kind of directly abuse players. But as I say, we expect it, but it is certainly getting less and less at the moment, especially from what it was like maybe 2 to 3 to 4 years ago.
I think from what we've seen, certainly over forum when we asked for questions, was overwhelmingly people were complimentary of not only your punditry but also your ambassadorial role with the club. Clearly exposure is probably the best cure for ignorance, and you can maybe talk about your role within the academy setup. I think you're head of the Girls Academy completely, and clearly getting more girls playing football and people having their daughters playing football is one way to dissipate these kind of biases against women's football. How have you seen the Girls Academy change over your time there?
It's been massive. I mean, when I was appointed, I think 2016, 2017, there was no kind of firm structure or framework. Every team were kind of doing what they wanted, and there was no kind of specific ethos or purpose or kind of an end goal. So where we've come from then to now is unbelievable. We've now got a full and complete pathway from under 11s, soon to be under 9s to under 19s, and across all age groups we've got about 120 signed players. And for me, I'm proud because I kind of was part of that, and I've saw it kind of grow and develop. And for me, it's offering that environment to girls, whether they want to play at an elite level or whether they want to play recreationally. There is that opportunity there for them, and I think that's so important, because I think when girls when they're younger, they've got that enthusiasm to get into the game, and they get to a certain age whereby their paths can go one way or the other. And I think we are supporting them very, very well, and kind of giving them those options, whether it be at U11s or at U19s. And I think part of, or 40% of the current first team is made up of academy graduates, which speaks absolute volumes. And for me, that's the ethos. We always kind of try and look down before we look out, and we certainly give these girls the opportunity not only to play football but to follow their dreams and aspirations and play full time and hopefully make a living out of it.
I think I think you've touched on it there, and it's something that's really noticeable. Is when I was playing youth football, sort of 20-something year ago now, the number of girls teams was pretty much non-existent, to be totally honest. I think actually our school team had one girl was on the bench for us. It was the only way she could really play football. they tried to start a team for sort of, I think it was under 14 girls, and it was quite tough to get going, really. And now I'm absolutely delighted and amazed at how many. I actually probably see more girls teams training around about me than I do boys teams. They're everywhere, and I think most, or certainly a fair few, the big sort of youth clubs in Edinburgh have all got sort of a decent girls pathway in place now, which is brilliant to see. I think on that note, it kind of maybe brings us to, you touched on the fact that Hibs have got various age groups and a lot of signed players. As fans and as maybe local businesses out there and such like, how would they go about supporting the girls team to help them kick on again to another level? What opportunities are there for us?
There's absolutely fantastic opportunities. I don't know if you guys or a lot of people are aware, but the Girls Academy fall under the charitable arm of the club, so the community foundation. So of course funds aren't as accessible as potentially other clubs. So we kind of rely heavily on sponsorship and funding. Those are absolutely paramount every season, and more so this season with the transition of brand from Macron to Joma. We're going through a period of transitioning in our training kit and our match kits, and there's fantastic opportunities, player individual sponsorships, squad sponsorships. We recently announced a front of shirt with Environmental Waste Controls, who extended their support of the club into the Girls Academy, which was absolutely fantastic. And I think you guys, Hibs.net, are also looking to do the same with our under 16s squad, which is fantastic, and we need more of that, because these girls deserve the resources and the environments to positively play and progress their footballing careers. And without local organisations, without you guys, without that support, they unfortunately won't be able to do that. So if there is anyone that would like to kind of follow suit, then certainly don't hesitate to get in touch with myself on any of my socials or you guys, and we can certainly have a discussion. But yeah, that kind of support is paramount season in, season out, and anything that we can do or get from this going forward would be a massive help.
And are we right in saying that the season starter packs are available, maybe for individuals who aren't looking to sponsor a team, but can certainly help out in that way?
Yeah, of course. We've had a great bit of engagement and success from them, and the kind of thinking behind that. For me, I just wanted to provide the players with something that was relatable and something that was positive on the back of a year and a half of COVID-related issues, and they were starting their football, they weren't. So for me, I just wanted to kind of pull something together to provide the players to kind of go into the season on a positive note, and something for them to kind of look forward to receiving. So again, we've had fantastic support, and if there is anyone that would like to help supply any products towards that, or kind of support any financial support, then certainly again don't hesitate to get in touch, because it would be greatly appreciated.
Can we just ask what kind of products you're most in need of, and maybe highlight that now?
Yeah, of course. So again, anything football related, so or football or female related. So journals. The big thing for me is trying to get the players to go away and reflect on their training and their match performances. So we're looking for diaries and journals. We're looking for hair baubles, pack of hair baubles, cones. Part of the pack we've managed to secure a football, so cones to go away and practice individually away from their collective sessions. So anything like that, anything football related. If you have something in mind, if you don't, as I say, please get in touch and we can have that discussion and take things forward with it.
I just want to say that I think it's a great idea, and it's something that I would certainly wholeheartedly encourage people to support. Just to come back, you did mention it is there as well as obviously said that we're now going to be, as Hibs.net, are going to be taking on the sponsorship of one of the age group teams, a shirt sponsorship. For us, the decision was fairly easy once we had the discussion. It's basically, as far as we're concerned, a natural progression from our long-term support of both youth development and the first team on the men's side of the club. And it's something we're delighted to do and very, very proud to do.
Yeah, no, and again, I was so appreciative, and I think it's fantastic to kind of hear you say that, and it's so refreshing that you have the support of the different entities within the club, and it kind of transitioning into the girls' side, it kind of encompasses and pulls together everything. So for me, thank you guys so much. It's very much appreciated, and certainly the squad will benefit massively from it.
Great stuff. Yeah, we're delighted to be able to wrap that up. I think lastly, Joelle, to finish on a high note, obviously looking ahead at the season, it's been a really strong start in the cup, as you've mentioned. What are some of your aspirations looking ahead? Obviously, Hibs always looking to challenge for titles and cups, but looking at the state of the squad and maybe the positions of other teams, what are your goals this season?
I think it's always cliche. You always say we want to go out and win the league and win as many cups as possible, and that certainly is the aim and the goal, but we need to be realistic. We finished outside of the top two last season for the first time in a number of years, and that hurt. So first and foremost, we need to get back in the top two. We need to better our performances and our goal tally and our points from last season, and kind of just build on that and show that progression. And certainly on the back of last night's performance up in Dundee against Dundee United, we were absolutely frightening. So if we can kind of continue that consistency across the season, the last couple of seasons, our biggest downfall has been creating chances but not converting them. But last night was unbelievable. We were frightening in front of goal, and for me, if we can continue that and continue in that vein, then I'll be happy.
Well, thanks very much there to Joelle for giving up her time to talk to us. I thought that was really, really interesting, actually a bit eye-opening, and probably the interview where I've actually learned the most. I think it's something that we're all quite aware of, is the challenges that women's football faces. It's a developing sport. It's something that it's still, relatively speaking, in its formative years, certainly is sort of mass participation, if you like. And I think, Joelle highlighted there some of the challenges that they're currently facing.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that maybe attitudes in the past are centred around, it should be self-starting and you kind of, let women's football get on with it. And if they're successful, it's off their own means. But I don't think that's really true. I think that's kind of just an attitude that allows us to be lazy with it and to not show support for our women's teams. We've seen in the USA, the progress of, elite level female football over there has been incredible. They are decades probably ahead of us in the UK in terms of their women's game, and that's largely because not only has time been invested, not only have they been great at sort of marketing themselves, they've put money into it. They've made sure that they've funded the game properly, and they've tried to put it on a pedestal, and it's reaped lots of dividends for them. So I guess that leads us on to the announcement of the sponsorship. Hibs.net have been able to sponsor the under-16s, the Girls Academy at Hibs, something we're really delighted to do, and it felt quite natural for us, Stu.
Yeah, definitely. I think once the sort of conversation was broached with Joelle a couple of weeks ago, it was something that was really almost seems a bit of a no-brainer, as we wanted to go ahead and do it. I think I kind of touched on it there, is that women's football for a long time, it's come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of decades since I was younger. With regards to the number of young girls playing the game, and I think sometimes there's you touched on there, this attitude, it should be self-starting, it should be self-sufficient, and of course that's the end goal, but it doesn't have 150 years of history to draw upon. It's coming out of a relatively recent de facto ban on the game. The information's there for people that want to read up on it. And the SFA were actually one of the last people to vote against sort of leaving such barriers in place. So we've got a lot of catching up to do. I think attitudes are changing for the better. And I think, us offering that sponsorship, it's a progressive way to do things. I touched on it there, it's a natural progression from supporting the young lads within the Hibs team, to support the young ladies now within the Hibs team. And yeah, I would say it's something that we're very, very proud to do, and rightly so, because it's the right thing to do, in my opinion.
Sure, and something that Joelle mentioned, which was almost quite stark. It was certainly a bit surprising. Was sometimes the investment they're looking for is not significant. She's talking about trying to find baubles and cones and these really simple things, journals, to help football development. These are the kind of things that I think in professional boys' academies, they're not having to ask for things like that. It's just kind of a given. And given the situation that the academy is under the charitable arm of a club, there are restrictions there on the way that they can seek funding. So yeah, these really simple things can make a big difference. And we felt, obviously, without getting into specifics of the amount that went across, that the money would be sort of better spent within the Girls Academy right now, because it would make such a notable difference. It would go much further than maybe just investing, as we always do, in one block into the club. There will still be money for other elements of Hibernian, and it will go across the club, but we felt right now we could make probably the most difference by putting some money into there. So yeah, we're pleased. Joelle was clearly pleased, and we're delighted to take that partnership forward, and we look forward to obviously working together during the course of the season as well.
Yeah, I think just to wrap this up, is I think you touched on it there, is the amount that will go to the Hibs men's team, be that youths or the first team, will be comparable to previous years. It's not a case of diverting money away. It's almost has been a slight increase in revenue in the site for various reasons, and we've thought of a way to use that. More than that, and I don't want to sound like it's patronising women's football, because I think they get quite enough of that anyway, but it is giving a little helping hand to girls who are enthusiastic, they're keen to get involved in the game, and they need a shirt sponsor. We're able to do that, so we've done it. It really is as simple as that.
Thank you everybody for listening to episode 4 of Hibs.pod. Sorry it's a little bit shorter than usual. That's because we had to delay this for a few weeks there. We hadn't announced a sponsorship of the academy at that point, and we couldn't release a podcast talking about a sponsorship that wasn't public knowledge yet. So that's the reason for the delay, but we're pleased to be back, and these episodes will now be regular and monthly, so you can put them in your diary, but do write it in pencil. We're a little bit inconsistent, but we are working on it. We had to cut this episode down because a lot of the talk around the interview was about Hibs' current form. Well, it was current at the time, and Hibs were unbeaten, so the chat wasn't really relevant anymore. We were still in the midst of the end of a summer window. I've cut all of that out because who wants to listen to that? But next month the episode will be released on time, and it'll be contemporary, and we'll be able to talk a little bit more about football. But thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the interview, and we'll see you very soon.